G'day guys, and welcome to this episode's how-tos. So this episode we are going to show you how to put the point back on your spear after you've lent your spear gun to someone. Because we all know that none of us would shoot our gun at a rock, but as soon as you lend your spear gun to your mate, the first thing he wants to do is shoot it into the closest rock he can find. So as you can see, this one's been Batiste, as we like to call the blunting of spears here. So what we're going to do is show you a couple of different methods for sharpening up your spear tip, and just some of the pitfalls that you want to watch out for. So first of all, we're going to do a pencil point on this spear. This is what was originally on it. I like to use a belt sander. Plenty of other ways to do it. You can do it with a file, which is a little bit time consuming, or a grinder. I like a belt sander. The number one reason is it's very easy to get a nice clean finish, and also it doesn't put too much heat into the end of the spear, and that's one thing you really need to be sort of watch when you're sharpening spears, is that not too much heat gets into the tip, because it's been tempered. Put too much heat back into it, you'll lose your tempering, and as soon as you hit anything harder than a fish, you'll lose your point again. So the first thing we're going to do is going to put a pencil point onto the end of this spear. Really simple process of just gently starting up the belt sander and just rolling the spear around in our fingers at a constant angle. So depending on how much of a point you want, you can usually get a gauge from how the angle is cut on the spear already. Move to the end here, and all we're going to do is simply roll the spear like that as the belt sander is operating. So let's do that now. Okay, so as you can see, this is not attracting too much heat. It's still cool enough for me to touch, but we are starting to bring the pencil point back onto this shaft here. So that's probably one of the keys, is just keeping it nice and cool, not too much pressure, and slowly as it goes. Okay, so as you can see, we're starting to get the basic pencil back onto this shaft. It's still got a point on it, but what I'll do now is I'll increase the angle of the spear, and we'll basically put a two-stage point on it. So it'll have the deeper angle at the point, where we run to the point, and then a shallower angle running back into the shaft. So all we're going to do now is lift up the back end of the shaft to increase the angle, to put a second bevel onto this point and put the So as you can see now, we've put a two-stage bevel. The reason I've done this is, particularly if it's your reef gun and you're around rocks and things like that continually, it saves you having to grind too much of your point off. And obviously, once we get too close to this flopper, this spear will need to flop and move back or remove, and it becomes no longer a viable spear. So all I've done there is increase the angle on the end of your tip, and as you can see, we've got a reasonably sharp tip back on the end of this spear. It's back in operation. This belt sander, just a El Cheapo Chinese one I picked up from a local tool shop for about 80 bucks, I think. If you don't have one of these, I suggest perhaps you get one, but if you don't have one, then you can always do it with the old lead file, and same principle. Obviously not going to generate near as much heat doing it with the file, and a vise is also very helpful. So if you've got a little bit of a workshop, these are very handy for a lot of things, rounding off your rubbers, tipping up your shafts, and if you don't, good old common file. Okay guys. The second thing I was going to show you today is how to tri-cut your spear. Essentially what a tri-cut means is we have three flat surfaces running towards the point to create a nice sharp point. Now a little bit of research that I know a few guys have done indicates that a tri-cut does cut a little better, has got a little bit more penetrative power. However, a little bit harder to do, and consequently why a few people still use pencil points. But what we'll do in this one is I'll show you how to do a tri-cut, and you should be able to get a really good result without a jib. Now, for a tri-cut, you want to cut three sides on it. So basic geometry, 360 degrees, you want to space every 120 degrees. Now, if you think about a clock face, that's essentially 12 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and 8 o'clock. So what we'll do with this spear is we'll use the flopper as the guide. So here we have 12 o'clock, then we run around from your perspective to 8 o'clock, and 4 o'clock, and they'll be the 3 flat faces that we put onto this shaft. So let's go ahead and do that. So as you can see here, we've now got our 3 flat faces that converge towards the point, consequently why it's called a tricut. And as you can see, there's a much better cutting edge on the interface between the faces of the grind that we've done there. Now the spear is still quite cool. There's a little bit of heat in it. Usually you can tell if it's starting to get too hot, you'll start to get some bluing on the end of the spear. If you're using a grinder or a more aggressive grinding method, a little bit of cool water just to dip the spear in as you go to keep the heat out of it. As I said, one of the big things about grinding shafts is making sure you keep that temperature down and you don't lose that tempering that's in there, because the next time you hit a rock, it'll just end up like the end of a banana. So that's it. As you can see, 3 nice flat faces, very even. And if you look down the actual point of the spear, that should look nice and symmetrical. So when you're firing it, you're still going to hit your fish, it's still going to be nice and accurate. So that's it, that's the grinding of your pencil point, and of course that there as your tricut.